This camera remote has been acting up lately. No matter how many times I press the button, the camera just won't respond. From the outside, there are no cracks, burns, or any visible damage. So chances are it's simply out of battery. Sounds simple, but it's actually the perfect opportunity to open it up. Take a look inside, check all the components, and share a quick and easy way to handle a remote that's malfunctioning or losing signal. Now, let's take a look at what's inside this remote. When I opened the cover and tried replacing it with a new battery, everything became clear. The remote started working normally again. The indicator light blinked, and the buttons responded smoothly just like before. Confirming the remote was alive again, all the buttons responded perfectly, and the gate opened smoothly. To be sure, I'll mark this battery so I know exactly which one I'm testing, and it won't get mixed up with a brand new one later. Next, I'll measure the voltage of this battery. I connect the probe to the multimeter to the battery terminals, and the screen shows the exact reading. I'll measure two batteries for comparison, one that still works and one that's completely drained. When I place the probes on a good battery, the multimeter shows a healthy voltage. But when I switch to the dead one, the reading drops almost to zero. This makes it crystal clear which battery is still usable and which one is finished. Now that I've confirmed which battery is dead, it's time to move on to the real challenge, trying to fix the remote in my own way. I grab a small plastic cup and pour a little bit of water into it. Next, I add a small amount of salt into a cup of water and stir it until it dissolves. This simple salt water solution will play an important role in my little experiment. I give the cup a good stir, making sure the salt is completely dissolved. The water turns clear again, but now it's transformed into a conductive solution. Now, I bring in the magnet, the key part of this experiment. With the salt water ready, it's time to see what role this magnet can play in helping me revive the dead battery. I carefully place the magnet into the cup of salt water and let it sink to the bottom. It immediately starts interacting with the solution. As soon as I dip the battery into the salt water, tiny bubbles rush out from its surface, clinging to the metal ends. A faint fizzing sound can be heard, almost like soda being poured. The reaction makes the whole setup look alive, as if some hidden energy is starting to awaken inside the dead battery. The magnet works by slightly influencing the movement of charged particles in the salt water. When the battery is placed in the solution, ions start moving around its surface, and the magnet's field can make this process a bit more active. Instead of just sitting around, let's experiment with a different approach. Sometimes a backup plan can lead to even better results. On the table sits a small alarm clock, completely silent. The hand has stopped moving, frozen in place, while the hour and minute hands remain stuck at the exact time the battery ran out. The ticking sound is gone, leaving only silence. Without power, this clock is nothing more than a still frame of time, waiting for a new battery to bring it back to life. Next to it is a wireless computer mouse that has also run out of power. The scroll will turn smoothly and the buttons still click, but the little LED light underneath stays dark. No matter how many times I move around, the cursor on the screen doesn't respond. Just like the clock, it's completely useless without a working battery. I check both batteries one after the other, and the result is the same: 0 voltage. Both of them are completely drained, with no energy left inside. It's clear that neither the clock nor the mouse will work until I find a way to bring these dead batteries back to life. First, I need to prepare a small wooden piece. This will act as the base to hold everything in place for the experiment. I grab 2 metal bolts and place them on the table. With the wood ready, I can attach the bolts and create a simple setup to work with the batteries. I take 2 zip ties and use them to secure the bolts tightly onto the wooden piece. Next, I slide in 2 washers under the tail ends of the bolts to raise them up, making sure both sides are level with the bolt heads. I take an old charging cable that I no longer use. I strip off the outer plastic covering carefully, revealing the thin copper wires hidden inside. These wires will be perfect for making the necessary connections in my setup. I then connect the 2 exposed wire ends to a pair of alligator clips. With these clips attached, it will be much easier to hook up the wires securely to the bolts or directly to the battery during the experiment. For the power supply, I'll use a 5-volt adapter. It's a safe and convenient source, and with the alligator clips connected, I can control exactly how the current flows into the dead battery during the experiment. I place the dead battery right between the 2 bolts, so that each end of the battery touches 1 bolt, with the wires and power supply connected. This setup will allow me to push a small voltage through the battery, almost like giving a quick jump start to see if it can hold a charge again. After about 15 minutes of leaving the battery with the magnet in the salt water, I notice the water has turned slightly yellowish. That means some kind of reaction has definitely taken place. Now it's time to take the battery out, dry it off, and test it to see if anything has changed. I spray a little WD-40 onto the surface of the battery and gently wipe it clean. The solution helps remove any rust or residue left from the salt water, leaving the battery's metal ends shiny again and ready for testing. Now I place the battery on the multimeter again and measure the voltage. With the probes touching each end, I watch the screen closely to see if there's any sign of life. Any number at all that shows the battery has regained some charge. This time, the multimeter doesn't stay at 0. Instead, a number appears on the screen, 2.8 volts. Compared to the completely dead reading from before, this is a huge difference. It means the experiment actually gave the battery a bit of life again. I place the battery back into the gate remote and close the cover. With a bit of excitement, I press the button to test it. The blue light comes on instantly, showing that the remote has power again. Now the real question is, will it actually open the gate? Ow! Instead of just testing quick fixes, I'll move on to actually charging the battery. Using the setup with the bolts, wires, and 5-volt power supply, I attach the 2 alligator clips to the bolts, one on each side, then carefully place the battery in between them, so that both ends make contact. Now the setup is complete, with the battery held firmly in place and ready to receive a charge from the 5-volt source. Now I just wait. As the current flows through, the battery slowly begins to warm up. That gentle warmth is a sign I'm looking for. It means the cell is actually taking in some charge. Once it reaches that point, I know the process is working. After waiting for a while, I disconnect the alligator clips and carefully remove the battery from between the bolts. The surface is slightly warm to the touch. Just as expected. Now it's time to put it back on the multimeter and measure the voltage again to see how much it has gained from the charging process. I place it on the multimeter again, and this time the screen shows around 1.5 volts. Right where it should be for a healthy cell. That means the charging attempt actually worked. I put the freshly charged 1.5 volt battery back into the analog clock. Almost immediately, the second hand starts ticking, and a familiar ticking sound fills the room again. Next, I place the other battery into the wireless mouse, and the LED light comes on. Finally, both devices are alive and working perfectly. In the end, what started as 2 completely dead batteries turned into usable power cells again. With a bit of patience, some creative DIY methods, and careful handling, I was able to bring the clock and mouse back to life. It's a reminder that sometimes even dead things can have a second chance, if you know how to approach them carefully. Handheld drill batteries sometimes go on strike at the worst possible moment. They won't charge, they work for a few seconds and shut off, or they don't respond at all. Many people think about throwing them away and buying a new one, but in many cases a battery only has minor issues that can be fixed. From checking the individual cells inside, cleaning the metal contacts, to restoring voltage with a few simple tricks, all of these can surprisingly bring the battery back to life. In this section, I'll open up this faulty battery and walk you step by step through how to diagnose and repair it to save a drill battery without having to buy a new one. Let's get started. I attach the pack to the drill and press the trigger. As you can see, the drill is running smoothly again, just as powerful as when it was new. Now I'll take a small cooling fan to test the two terminals of the battery. This is a simple way to make sure the battery has stable voltage. Just touch the fan's wires to the terminals. If the fan spins steadily, it means the battery is working fine. When I touched the fan's wires to the battery terminals, the fan didn't spin at all. This means the battery still doesn't have enough voltage to run, or there may be an issue left from the repair. It's a clear sign that I need to double check the solder joints and test each cell again. When I test a normal battery, the multimeter reading is close to 20V. This is a standard voltage level for a 20V drill battery, which shows that the pack is still in good condition and capable of delivering enough power for the drill. To avoid confusion, I'll use tape to label both batteries. The good one, showing nearly 20V, will be marked as good. The dead one, reading 0V, will be marked differently so it's easy to identify. This makes it much easier to manage the batteries and keep track during the repair process. When I checked the old one with the multimeter, the reading showed 0V. This means the entire battery pack is no longer outputting voltage, possibly because the protection circuit has shut it down or too many cells inside are damaged. Now I'll plug into the charger to check the battery can receive power. If the indicator light on the charger comes on normally, it means the battery is still able to charge. But if the light doesn't change or doesn't show anything at all, then the battery may be severely damaged or the protection circuit inside has been cut off. When I plugged in the good battery, the charger recognized it, the indicator light came on, and the charging process started normally. In contrast with the damaged battery, the charger didn't recognize at all. This means there isn't any voltage left inside for the charger to detect, so no current can flow through. In this case, since the dead battery has no voltage left, the charger won't recognize it. To fix this, I need to boost the voltage first by giving it a small initial charge so the battery reaches a minimum voltage level. Only then can the charger detect it and continue charging normally. This is a crucial step when dealing with cells that have been deeply discharged down to 0V. To boost the voltage, I'll use an external power supply that matches the cell's voltage level. Now I'll prepare 2 pieces of wire and 4 flat washers. The washers will help secure the connection and provide better contact when attaching the wires to the battery terminals. Next, I'll attach 2 flat washers to the end of each wire. This makes the wire ends grip more securely when connected to battery terminals, while also creating a wider contact surface for stable current flow. Once secured, I'll have 2 wires with washer ends ready to connect to the battery. Now I'll connect the 2 wires with the flat washers to the battery terminals. When I measured the voltage during charging, the multimeter reading jumped up at first, but then the voltage started to drop back down. It wasn't because the battery was damaged. It was simply because the empty battery was being charged. The voltage drop is a normal behavior during the boosting process, as current from the source battery flows in to help the empty one wake up and regain its initial voltage. After boosting for a while, if the battery feels slightly warm to the touch, that's enough. This is a sign that it has received current and started the recharging process. At this point, I can disconnect it and try plugging it into the main charger check. Now I'll use a multimeter to test again. This time, the reading shows voltage instead of 0V like before. That means the boosting process worked, and the battery now has enough initial voltage for the charger to recognize it. Next, I'll test again with the cooling fan. As soon as I touched the wires to the battery terminals, the fan started spinning normally. This proves that the battery now has stable voltage and is able to supply power to a device. Now I'll plug the battery back into the main charger check. The indicator light on the charger has turned on and shows that charging is in progress. This means the battery, after being boosted, is now recognized by the charger and has started charging normally. With some more time, it should recover enough to be used again with the drill. After charging and checking, I reattach the battery to the drill. When I pressed the trigger, the drill ran smoothly and powerfully as usual. This shows that the boosting and recharging process was successful, bringing the battery back to life and making it usable again instead of being thrown away. As you can see, after boosting the voltage, the battery is working normally again and can be used with the drill. However, I should note that this method doesn't always work. If the battery is too old or severely damaged, voltage boosting won't provide a lasting solution. And in that case, replacing the battery would be the better option. This handheld drill has suddenly become noticeably weaker lately. When I pull the trigger, it spins for a moment and then shuts off, and sometimes it doesn't even power on. Overall, the drill still looks very new, with no signs of burning or motor issues, so the most likely cause is the battery is drained. It may seem like a small issue, but it's actually a great chance to inspect the battery, check the contacts, and try a few simple revival methods before thinking about buying a new one. Now I'm going to take another battery of the same type and capacity to replace it. It still works perfectly fine. The motor runs smoothly, and the drill responds instantly when I pull the trigger. After testing with a new one, everything runs smoothly, which means the problem doesn't come from the drill itself, but from the worn-out battery that can no longer hold a charge. That clearly proves the old battery is no longer working properly. Next, I'm going to label both batteries, the faulty one and the working one, so it's easier to tell them apart during the repair process. This will help me avoid any mix-ups later and keep track of which battery I'm testing or restoring. I'll mark the damaged one as bad and the working one as good, so it's clear which is which at a glance. This way, I won't accidentally mix them up while checking or working on a repair. Now I'll grab a small cooling fan to test the battery. This fan is a simple and handy tool for checking whether the battery can still deliver power. If the fan spins steadily, it means there's still some charge left. If it doesn't move at all, the battery is completely dead. When I connected the fan to the bad battery, there was absolutely no response. The blades didn't even twitch, and I couldn't hear a single sound from the motor. This clearly shows that the battery isn't supplying any power at all. It's completely dead and won't work for any device until it's restored. Next, I'll move on to measuring the voltage to see if there's any remaining charge left in the battery. Using a multimeter, I can check whether it still holds a tiny bit of power or if it's completely drained. This step will give me a clearer picture of the battery's condition before attempting any DIY restoration. The good battery is fully charged, and when I measure it, the multimeter shows a solid 20 volts. This confirms that it's working perfectly and ready to supply full power. Then I switch to the bad battery, and the multimeter shows no reading at all. This confirms that it has lost all its charge and isn't delivering any voltage. It's probably because the voltage is dropped too low. This type of circuit will completely cut off the output to protect the cells, effectively making the battery appear dead, even though the cells inside aren't entirely ruined, a phenomenon often called a false dead battery. I'll prepare 2 omega tube clamps to securely hold the battery in place during the voltage boosting process. These clamps will keep everything stable and prevent any accidental movement while I work on restoring it. I'm going to use them to connect the terminals of the good battery and the bad battery, allowing the good one to transfer power and boost the voltage of the dead battery. This will help wake up the protection circuit and bring the faulty battery back to life. I'll bend the clamp slightly to ensure it fits snugly and make solid contact with the battery terminals. This way, the connection will be stable and safe during the process. Before inserting the clamp, I'll clean the battery terminals to remove any dirt or corrosion. This ensures a solid electrical connection and helps the voltage boosting process work effectively. I'll use some fine sandpaper along with WD-40 to thoroughly clean the terminals. The sandpaper removes any corrosion or buildup, while the WD-40 helps loosen grime and leaves the metal surface smooth and shiny, ensuring a reliable connection for the voltage boost. After cleaning the terminals, I insert the two ends of the clamp into the slots of both batteries, making sure they sit firmly and establish a solid connection between the good battery and the bad one. And while boosting the battery, I'll use a multimeter to monitor the voltage throughout the process. This lets me see the bad battery gradually regain voltage and ensures everything stays within a safe range. The voltage has started to rise, but I notice it's slightly dropping as the process continues. This is normal at first, as the battery draws current, and the cells begin to wake up, gradually stabilizing over time. This only needs to stay connected for about 10 more seconds, just enough to give the bad battery a quick boost and bring its voltage back into the safe range. After the voltage boost is complete, I carefully disconnect the clamp from both batteries. I make sure to remove it slowly and safely, ensuring there's no accidental short circuit or spark. Next, I measure the voltage of the bad battery again, and now it shows a small amount of voltage. This indicates that the battery is partially recovered and is no longer completely dead. A good sign that the DIY voltage boost worked. And as expected, the good battery's voltage has decreased slightly from its original reading. This is perfectly normal because it's applied some of its energy to the bad battery during the voltage boosting process. The small drop shows that power was successfully transferred, helping to reactivate the protection circuit and bring the dead battery back to life. After giving it a quick boost, I take the bad battery and test it in the cordless drill. I insert it carefully, pull the trigger, and the drill responds immediately. The motor runs smoothly, showing that the battery is now functional again, a satisfying confirmation that the DIY restoration worked. The drill runs smoothly and efficiently, just like it did with a fully charged battery. As I pull the trigger, the motor spins up immediately without any hesitation or stuttering. Even when I apply light pressure while drilling, the speed remains consistent and the torque feels solid. There's no lag, no unusual noise, and the performance is surprisingly close to what I get with a brand new battery. This shows that the bad battery has regained enough charge to function reliably, bringing it back to life through the DIY voltage boost. The drill operates steadily without any flickering or intermittent power. There's no choppiness or sudden drops in speed. It maintains a consistent flow of energy, which proves that the bad battery is now supplying stable power just like a healthy one.